Hey everyone, welcome back. Have you ever stopped to look around at your life and felt genuinely satisfied? You know that feeling when you've got the stable job that pays the bills, the comfortable home you've worked hard for, meaningful relationships with people who care about you, and everything just seems to be clicking into place? It feels amazing, doesn't it? But here's something that might surprise you, and it's something most people never think about until it's too late. That very same perfect life you've built could actually be quietly sabotaging your growth and keeping you from becoming the person you're truly capable of being. Now, before you click away thinking this is going to be another one of those quit your job and live in a van videos, stick with me here. We're going to explore something much more nuanced and, honestly, a bit unsettling. We're diving deep into how the pursuit of comfort and perfection can slowly drain away your curiosity, weaken your inner drive, and disconnect you from the very experiences that lead to real fulfillment and growth. This isn't about throwing away everything you've worked for. It's about understanding a pattern that affects millions of people who feel stuck despite having what looks like success on the surface. Let's start by talking about this idea of having it all that we're constantly fed. From the time we're young, society gives us this pretty clear roadmap. Work hard in school, get a good education, climb up the career ladder, buy a house, build financial security, find the right partner, and eventually settle into a peaceful, predictable life. It all sounds wonderful, and in many ways it is. There's nothing wrong with wanting stability and security. But here's where things get interesting, and where psychology starts to reveal something we don't often discuss. Comfort itself isn't the problem, not at all. The issue is when we have too much of it for too long, when everything in your life becomes predictable and easy. Something fascinating happens in your brain. It essentially shifts into what researchers call autopilot mode. You stop actively engaging with your environment because you don't need to. There are no problems to solve, no obstacles to overcome, no unknowns to navigate. And while that might sound like paradise, it's actually where the slow erosion of your potential begins. Think about the last time you learned something new or developed a skill. Chances are it happened because you needed to, or because you deliberately put yourself in an unfamiliar situation. That's not a coincidence. It's how human beings are wired to grow. Here's something we don't talk about enough. Comfort kills curiosity. It does this so gradually that you barely notice it happening. Consider your daily routine for a moment. For many of us, it looks something like this. Wake up at the same time, grab that familiar coffee, head to work on the same route, handle tasks we've done hundreds of times before, come home, maybe hit the gym or watch our favorite shows, and repeat. Day after day, week after week. There's a soothing rhythm to it, sure, but there's also something missing. When was the last time you felt genuinely curious about something? When did you last ask yourself a question you didn't already know the answer to, or explore an idea that made you a little uncomfortable? In a perfectly comfortable life, these moments become rare because we don't need them. We've got our systems figured out, and stepping outside those systems feels unnecessary, even risky. But here's what history teaches us. Innovation and breakthrough thinking almost never come from comfortable places. Take someone like Steve Jobs, for example. He didn't revolutionize personal computing, music, and phones by sitting comfortably in what was familiar. He constantly pushed into uncomfortable territory, asking questions like, why does it have to work that way? Or, what if we tried something completely different? The same goes for Marie Curie, who worked in incredibly challenging conditions, facing skepticism and physical danger, to make discoveries that changed science forever. There's actual research backing this up too. Studies published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology have found that people living in stable, unchallenged environments show a drop in creative thinking by as much as 30%. Let that sink in for a moment. When everything around you is perfect and settled, your brain literally becomes less creative. You're less likely to come up with innovative solutions, less likely to explore new interests, and less likely to develop new skills. Your perfect setup might be turning your mind into a comfortable museum instead of an active laboratory. So ask yourself right now, when was the last time you tried something that genuinely scared you or made you feel like a beginner again? If you're struggling to answer that question, you might be experiencing exactly what we're talking about. Let's move on to something even more fundamental. What happens to your drive and motivation in a perfect life? You've probably heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That pyramid showing how human needs progress from basic survival up to self-actualization at the very top. Self-actualization is that peak state where you're becoming the fullest, most authentic version of yourself. It's where you're growing, contributing, and living according to your deepest values and potential. But here's the catch. Reaching that level requires something specific. It requires grit, resilience, and the ability to push through difficulty. These aren't just nice character traits. They're essential psychological muscles that only develop through use. And in a perfectly comfortable life, you simply don't use them. Think of it like physical muscles. If you never lift anything heavy, never challenge your body, never push past that initial discomfort of exercise, what happens? Your muscles weaken and waste away. The exact same thing happens to your psychological resilience and motivation when life is too easy for too long. Everything gets handed to you on that proverbial silver platter, and gradually your internal drive, that fire that pushes you to become more, starts to fade. Look at entrepreneurs like Elon Musk, who've talked openly about why they intentionally embrace chaos and difficulty. It's not because they're masochists or because they don't value peace. It's because they understand that ambition and drive are fueled by challenge. When you're constantly navigating uncertainty and solving difficult problems, you're building mental and emotional strength. You're developing the capacity to handle bigger challenges and reach for bigger goals. But when your life is too comfortable, something insidious happens. You start settling for good enough. And at first that feels fine. Good enough is, well, good. But over time, that good enough mindset becomes your new ceiling. You stop reaching higher because you don't need to. You stop imagining what could be because what is feels satisfactory. And years can pass this way, with that ceiling getting lower and lower as you adjust your expectations downward to match your comfortable reality. The question becomes, is comfort making you stronger and more capable, or is it slowly making you weaker and more dependent on things staying exactly as they are? There's another dimension to this that we need to explore, the social side of the perfect life. When we're building our ideal existence, we naturally surround ourselves with things and people that support that vision. We choose friends who share our views and make us feel validated. We stay in jobs that we've mastered, where we know the players and the rules. We stick to hobbies and activities we're already good at because they're enjoyable and stress-free. On the surface, this makes total sense. Why wouldn't you want to be around supportive people and do things you enjoy? But here's what psychology and business history both tell us. Real growth comes from friction, from encountering perspectives different from our own, from being challenged by people and ideas that don't automatically agree with us. When you insulate yourself in comfort, you create what's called an echo chamber. Everyone around you reflects your existing beliefs back at you. Nobody pushes you to think differently. There's no creative tension, no productive disagreement, no exposure to radically different ways of seeing the world. And in that bubble, innovation dies. Consider the story of Blockbuster, the video rental giant that dominated the entertainment industry for years. They had what looked like a perfect business model. Thousands of stores, millions of loyal customers, a system that worked flawlessly. They were so comfortable in their success that when a small startup called Netflix proposed a partnership, Blockbuster dismissed them. The idea of streaming seemed risky and unnecessary when their stores were packed every Friday night. We all know how that story ended. Netflix disrupted an entire industry while Blockbuster clung to their comfortable perfection until it was too late. The same pattern plays out in individual lives. When everything around you confirms what you already think and know, you lose touch with the edges of possibility. You miss the early signals of change. You become blind to opportunities that exist just outside your comfortable bubble. The most exciting breakthroughs, the most meaningful growth. These things happen at the boundaries, in those uncomfortable spaces where different ideas collide and force us to expand our thinking. Now let's be absolutely clear about something. This isn't a message about abandoning everything you've built or intentionally making your life miserable. That would be just as unbalanced and unhelpful as staying in total comfort forever. What we're really talking about here is finding a healthy balance and being intentional about where and when you introduce challenge into your life. The goal isn't to live in constant stress or struggle. Research from positive psychology experts like Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, who studied what he called flow states, shows us something important. Flow is that magical zone where you're performing at your peak, fully engaged, and time seems to disappear. But flow doesn't come from doing things that are too easy or too hard. It comes from challenges that stretch you just beyond your current skill level, activities that require your full attention and effort, but are still within your reach. This is the sweet spot we're aiming for. You want enough comfort to provide stability and peace, but also enough challenge to keep growing and developing. So, what might this look like in practical terms? Start small and be strategic. You don't need to quit your job or move to another country, unless you want to. Instead, look for opportunities to inject intentional discomfort into specific areas of your life. Maybe that means taking a class or learning a skill that has nothing to do with your career, something where you'll be a complete beginner again. How would it feel to be the person in the room who doesn't know what they're doing, who has to ask basic questions, who struggles with concepts that others find easy? That vulnerability is where growth lives. Or consider traveling solo to a place you've never been, especially somewhere with a different language or culture. There's something powerful about navigating unfamiliar territory on your own, solving problems without your usual support network, experiencing the satisfaction of figuring things out in real time. You might also set a goal that genuinely stretches you, not something impossible, but something that makes you think, I'm not sure I can do this, but I really want to try. Maybe it's running a marathon when you've never been a runner, learning a musical instrument as an adult, starting that creative project you've been putting off, or speaking up in situations where you'd normally stay quiet. The key is that these challenges should feel meaningful to you. They should connect to who you want to become, not just be random acts of difficulty for difficulty's sake. When you choose your challenges intentionally, you're taking control of your growth instead of leaving it to chance or waiting for life to force change upon you. So here we are at the heart of it all. Your perfect life, that carefully constructed existence of stability, comfort, and predictability, might actually be working against you in ways you haven't fully recognized. It might be gently smothering your natural curiosity, quietly eroding the drive that once pushed you forward, and subtly isolating you from the diverse experiences and perspectives that spark real growth and innovation. But here's the genuinely good news. The part that should leave you feeling energized rather than discouraged. You have the power to change this pattern right now, today. You don't need anyone's permission. You don't need to wait for the perfect moment. You just need to recognize what's happening and make a different choice. Embracing a bit of uncertainty, seeking out challenges that make you uncomfortable, putting yourself in situations where you don't have all the answers. These aren't punishments or sacrifices. They're gifts you give yourself. They're investments in the person you're becoming. Every time you step outside your comfort zone, you're building resilience, expanding your capabilities, and opening yourself up to possibilities you can't even imagine from where you're standing right now. Think about where you want to be in 5 years or 10 years. Do you want to look back and see a life that was comfortable but static, where you played it safe and stayed within familiar boundaries? Or do you want to see growth, transformation, stories of challenges you overcame, skills you developed, experiences that shaped you into someone more capable and interesting than you are today? The choice is yours, and it's available to you every single day. Your potential isn't fixed. It's waiting for you to create the conditions where it can flourish. And those conditions almost always include a healthy dose of discomfort, challenge, and uncertainty. So here's what I want you to do right now. Think of one specific step you can take to shake things up. Just one. It doesn't have to be huge or dramatic. Maybe it's signing up for that class you've been curious about. Maybe it's reaching out to someone whose perspective differs from yours and actually listening to understand. Maybe it's tackling a project at work that scares you a little. Maybe it's simply saying yes to something you'd normally decline because it feels unfamiliar. Whatever it is, commit to it. Write it down. Tell someone about it. Take that first step toward intentional discomfort and notice what happens. Notice how it feels to be challenged again. Notice the energy that comes from learning and growing. Notice how your perspective shifts when you're engaged with life instead of just managing it. What's one perfect thing in your life that might actually be holding you back? What's one step you're going to take to inject some challenge back into your world? Thanks so much for watching and being here. Remember, your potential is too valuable to waste on perfect comfort. Go shake things up, and we'll see you in the next video. Now get out there and do something that scares you a little,